Hi everybody, welcome back inside the CrossFit Update Studios. I'm Sean Woodland with Tommy Marquez. We continue to get you set for the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games, now just a couple of weeks away from things getting kicked off in Madison, Wisconsin. And today we are talking about the team competition, and when you take the four-person format and you mix that with the setting of Madison and what that venue allows Dave Castro to throw at the athletes, I am really looking forward to watching this team competition go down.
I think this is going to be a monumental year for the Affiliate Cup, and I think when we look back at 2018 and future years, we're going to see 2018 as a huge step forward in terms of competition, in terms of format, as well as watchability at home. So I think this is all pluses for the team comp.
40 teams heading to the Alliant Energy Center in Madison, Wisconsin to find out who is the fittest team on earth. And this is where we stand going into the competition. This is a cross-regional comparison for games qualifiers only. So we were able to use regional scoring, and that has CrossFit Mayhem Freedom on top of the overall leaderboard with 506 points. They're 44 points up on Invictus X out of the West, and some very familiar names there in the top 10. We're going to talk about a ton of them here, but when you look at these standings, I don't think anybody would be shocked that it played out like that when we got to Madison.
Yeah, Sean, no surprises here in terms of looking at that cross-regional comparison there. The top 4 teams all won their regional competitions pretty handily. The rest of the top 10, all names that we're used to seeing at the games year in and year out, and even some teams returning for a second year that I think we could see some improvements as well.
So Wasatch Brutes, they are your defending champions. They are obviously not on that list. They are not back this year to defend their title. To me, says the de facto favorites now have got to be Mayhem Freedom.
And you would be correct, Sean. On top of being the #1 team in that CRC as well, they check all the boxes else for being a prior champion. You look at them as individuals. They've got 3 former individual games athletes in Lindy Barber, Tasia Persevich, and of course, Rich Froning. And then their 4th individual, Matt Hewitt, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated men in the field in terms of fitness and impact on a team. And then on top of that, they have experience competing with each other for multiple years on end, Tasia being kind of the new element to the team, but they live, eat, and breathe the team competition all surrounding Cookeville there with that kind of team atmosphere. I mean, they're the big dogs until someone knocks them off, in my opinion.
We still got to run the race, obviously, and there are some very talented teams that have a chance of knocking them off, but who do you think their biggest threat is?
I mean, I can't ignore the team Don't Stop from the South. They may have been 4th in that CRC, but I don't think you can discount the fact that they went in the South in week 1 with the elevation, which has a much bigger impact than I think people give them credit for. And I think they embody what we thought would happen with this new format. It's a collection of talented individuals getting together to make a quick run at the team competition. And I really think as individuals, they are by far and away one of the most talented teams in the field. But their performance at the games this year, I think, could set a precedent for future years on how likely individuals are to jump ship to the team competitions, depending on whether or not they can make a successful run with just 1 year of preparation.
That's a really good point, kind of canary in the coal mine there. You mentioned that they were 4th, though, in that cross-regional comparison. So there are 2 teams ahead of them, Invictus X being one of them and CrossFit Soul being the other. What separates Don't Stop from those other 2 to make them the main challenger?
Well, Don't Stop has the collection of individual games athletes and I think the most individual talent as well, but Invictus and Soul have the experience in the team competition. Invictus is probably the most experienced team in the field outside of Fort Vancouver. They're a team that, just like death and taxes, can be guaranteed to be at the CrossFit Games year in and year out. They have the dancers on their team this year, Sam and Jen, and I think Sam Dancer is a huge X factor too, because I think he's at his best when he's on the team competition. We saw that with CrossFit Conjugate and how he helped them to a podium spot there. And then Team Soul, this is a team that I think the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. You look at their roster, there's not a single individual games athlete on their team. None of the names jump out as kind of, you know, the top tier individuals of the sport, but you can't deny their performance. They're one of a handful of teams that finished every single regional event without getting capped. That's not something that Don't Stop can say. They have an event record, so does Invictus as well. And it's just one of those teams where they were just on the fringe of the top 10 in 2016, and with a few improvements, they could definitely be in the hunt.
You mentioned the word experience, and there are a couple of teams on that cross-regional comparison who have a ton of it and could very easily find themselves in the top 3 at the end of the CrossFit Games. That's OC3 Black, and then you mentioned Fort Vancouver as well.
Fort Vancouver right up there with Invictus in terms of having been at every single affiliate competition since its inception at the CrossFit Games back in 2009, led by Adam Neifert, old Mr. Captain America. He was the head of the USA Invitational team last year. I mean, they have experience in spades, but they also have performance in spades. They've won it all in 2010. They finished second in 2011. They finished third last year. They've swept the podium. So it wouldn't be a surprise, even though they sit in ninth on the CRC, if they're in the hunt come by the end of the weekend. And then you look at a team like OC3 Black. I almost feel bad for them because despite all of their successes, they still kind of feel like they're living in the shadow of Mayhem. You know, they're the Cal Naughton Jr. to Mayhem's Ricky Bobby. They're part of the shake and bake out there in the Central, but they don't get the checkered flag when everything's said and done. But still, they've been in the top 10 the last 2 years. They're an extremely talented team. And again, like I said, some of the other teams, I wouldn't be surprised if they're one of those fringe podium teams.
Give me a dark horse, someone that could really gum up the works, and you wouldn't be shocked if, at the end of the weekend, there they are in the top 5.
Yeah, for me, it's probably Torrance Training Lab. This is a team similar to kind of Don't Stop. This is their first year kind of making a run at the team competition. They got Games individual athlete Jamie Hagia from 2016. The other female is Chelsea Grigsby, who has been a perennial regional contender, a fringe Games athlete. She's been on the bubble a couple of years. 2 guys in Teddy Huang and Andrew Kong, who've done very well on the regional level, consistently making it to the California Regional in years past. They were the runner-up behind Invictus X and were neck and neck with him all weekend long. Save for Event 5, where they had a 12th place finish, they were pushing Invictus X for that top spot. They even finished with an event record in Event 6. So this could be a team, if they do well in the swimming and games level type events, that could mix things up by the end of the weekend.
One thing that all the teams that you've mentioned have in common is that they are all from the United States. And this is where the team competition really differs from the individual competition, in that the U.S. is dominated. We've only had one team from outside the United States on the podium, and that was Yas a couple of years ago. Is there a team from outside of the U.S. that has a shot, or who do you think does the best of the international teams, if that's an easier question?
Well, the first question, do they have a shot? I don't think so, because that Yas team had individuals like Jamie Green and Elliot Simmons, who we know now are very accomplished individuals, having made the games this year. But if I have to go on a team that has the best opportunity, I'm going to lean on 2 things. I'm going to lean on experience and leadership, and that's something that Reebok CrossFit Frankston from down in Australia has with their leader and head guy in Rob Forte, who went team this year to help make sure that a snafu in registration for the Open didn't prevent his team from competing this year. I think with this new format, talented individuals can have a much larger impact with there being fewer individuals on the floor and an individual person taking a larger portion of the workload. So that's where I think Rob can have the biggest impact this year in particular, which could give them a shot.
If you haven't already done your Reebok Pick'em bracket, make sure you do that as soon as possible. Go to Reebok.com/Pick'em. They want you to pick the top 10 men, top 10 women, and the top 5 teams. If you get all 25 correct, you could win $2 million. That's filling out a perfect bracket. Last year, no one did it, so they doubled the prize money, carried it on over. So now $2 million. And remember, it closes July 31st. Go to Reebok.com/Pick'em. And remember, tickets to the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games are still on sale. You can go to games.crossfit.com for more information on that. And of course, you're probably going to need a place to stay when you get to Madison. We have you covered on that as well. Go to CrossFitHotels.com and you can find yourself a room where you can keep all your stuff when you're at the Alliant Energy Center watching the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games. So that's going to do it for us for today. For Tommy Marquez, I'm Sean Woodland. We will be back next week to talk about the individual side of the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games.